Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Tony Allen, president of Delaware State University. Today, I want to talk about the Liberty County, Georgia Sheriff's Department stop and search of a charter bus carrying our women's lacrosse team traveling home on I-95 through Georgia. Before I do that, a note about the format today. After my remarks, I will be taking questions. We ask that you put your questions in the chat along with your name and affiliation. We intend to get to as many as time permits. Today, I am announcing the university's intention to file a formal complaint with the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice. The basis of this complaint will be police misconduct related to the April 20th incident in which Liberty County Sheriff's Department officers conducted a constitutionally dubious stop and search of a charter bus transporting the university's women's lacrosse team. That complaint as a public document will be made available to all of you when it is filed. I do not intend to debate the merits of our complaint in the public square. From our standpoint, the evidence is clear and compelling. Our women's lacrosse team is one of only 5 Division I lacrosse teams fielded by a historically Black college or university in America. They are exceptional student athletes and exceptional people, coached by a standard bearer for the sport, Coach Pam Jenkins and her excellent staff. On April 20, they were stopped for a minor traffic violation that turned into a search for illegal drugs and drug paraphernalia. We believe both the stop and the search are a violation of rights, the rights of every passenger on that bus and those of the driver. When the team returned to campus, Coach Jenkins reported this incident to our athletic director, and she immediately reported it to the University General Counsel as our process requires. Our first and most immediate concern was our students and coaches' mental and physical well-being. That remains paramount. We also immediately began an investigation into the incident. We have been determined to be precise and deliberate in understanding the facts of the incident. Our intention was to let the fact pattern lead us to the most pointed action we can take as a university. We've also wanted to provide our students with the best possible advice and counsel for action they can pursue as individual citizens. We've also wanted to target our inquiries to the offending law enforcement agency in question. As a point of fact, in Georgia, there are 159 elected sheriff's offices and 628 law enforcement agencies overall. Establishing that the Liberty County Sheriff's Office was the responsible party was essential to our review. Questions have been raised about the timing of our response. As president, responsibility for such decisions is always mine. To the extent people believe we should have moved faster, that burden lies with me and me alone. I chose to ensure that our findings were as unassailable as possible. In that vein, the essential facts of the case remain sound. As you know, I've spoken personally with Sheriff Bowman. Our conversation was cordial, but the impasse is apparent. We believe the stop and search raises serious constitutional and civil rights issues. He disagrees. It's worth noting here that he ordered the release of body camera footage from one of the 4 officers involved in the incident, which he believes exonerates his department. Sheriff Bowman insists that personal items were not searched. The video clearly shows officers searching toiletries, searching clothes, and opening a family graduation gift. It also raises question about the conduct of both the dog handler and the officer who remained on the bus, asking questions of our students. Sheriff Bowman said the officers were unaware of the nature of the passengers on the bus. The video clearly demonstrates that the officers were aware that this was a busload of quote unquote schoolgirls and that they were looking for drugs and drug paraphernalia. To be clear, the university made a Freedom of Information Act request consistent with Georgia law for the body camera footage of all officers involved in the incident and the paperwork generated by the stop. That deadline for that request expired yesterday. At present, we have not received a response from Sheriff Bowman's office. As some of you may know, Delaware Attorney General Kathleen Jennings formally requested that the incident be reviewed by the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Civil Rights. The Attorney General's request and our complaint are first steps, but the bus driver, our coaches, and our students have their own options, and they are certainly exploring their own paths forward. We wholly support them. As a final word, I cannot say enough about the dignity, grace, and resolve of our student athletes, as well as that of our student athlete journalist, Sydney Anderson. The team's experience, as you know, was chronicled in an article for the school year's final edition of the Hornet Online, our student newspaper, which was published on May 4th. It is a carefully and thoughtful piece crafted and supported by video footage and photos taken by the student athletes and very consistent with the material facts of our own review. We did not coordinate the student newspaper, nor did we know that the story was going to be published. Yet still, I am pleased with the attention it has received and how the students and Coach Jenkins have since presented their experiences thoughtfully and truthfully in media outlets around the country on the topic. Let me offer one final perspective here. In the first 6 weeks of the year, HBCUs around the country, including Delaware State University, were subject to a round of bomb threats. As our visibility has increased, so has the malignant intentions of the worst among us. It is a reality too many Americans of color must live with. So much so that even being stopped for a minor traffic violation is cause for concern. I am always aware of the special trust parents have placed in us to safeguard their young adults. In this instance, everyone came home safely, but you have all reported on incidents that started innocuously and spiraled out of control. This happens in part because people feel frustrated by voicelessness, frustrated by safety that is predicated on silence, and frustrated by well-being predicated on submission. We do not teach our students to be submissive. We teach them to be empowered and to use their voices for good, to be engaged in things greater than their own self-interest. That's why the best among our nation are behind them, and why they shall not be moved. Thank you, and I will now take your questions. I see a few questions in the chat, so I'll start at the top.
Okay. First one is from Corey Decker of WRDE-TV. Have you had fear for athletic teams previously on how they could be treated when traveling? If not, how has this encounter made you fearful?
Encounter, first of all, has made me incensed. With respect to travel for our teams, we have not ever been concerned about these kinds of issues. We have certainly been aware of making sure that they can get to their games and matches safely. But this issue raises an important and larger point about the single and original sin in America, race relations. So as we move forward, we will continue to be diligent to make sure that our students are safe, both on the campus and as they are representing the university around the world.
The next one is from Chris Barris of WHYY. Question, do you feel racial bias motivated the search?
I would say the following. What we believe is that the search was conducted inappropriately, and there was implicit racial bias in the search. Some folks have asked, do we believe that they were stopped based on race? I would just advise everybody who knows the term of art, racial profiling, that it's both about the stop and the intent once the stop begins. So even if they did not know who was on that bus at the time of the stop, there was certainly great certainty with who was on that bus once they boarded it. And I do believe that there was some implicit bias in how those officers conducted themselves.
The next question is from Becca Hendrickson of 6 ABC Action News. What action is the university taking to better support student athletes during travel? Is any new action necessary?
We are reviewing all of our protocols front to back with respect to travel for our student athletes. And we're making some recommendations here in the near term. What I can tell you, though, is no student, no staff, no coach should have to worry about inappropriate stops and searches as they are traveling. So we will be sure that we continue to think through everything we could possibly do and continue to do moving forward to guarantee their safety.
Becca Hendrickson, once again, 6 ABC Action News. How soon after the incident did you become aware of what happened? What resources has the university made to student athletes and coaches since?
We were immediately aware upon the students' return. As I said in the statement, the coach, Coach Pam Jenkins, who's been tremendous, alerted our athletic director alerted our general counsel. The coach and the athletic director met with the students, made sure they were okay in the moment, have since provided them with the opportunity for mental health counseling and the like. And we continue to make sure that we are engaged with them regularly. As a matter of fact, this morning I just met with them again, making sure that they were feeling okay. And I can say that leaders across Delaware have been on several calls we've had with them over the last few weeks.
From Corey Decker of WRDE-TV, for people who say there was no racial profiling after watching the body camera video, what is your message to them?
With respect to the body camera video, I actually mentioned all of that in my statement as well. What I can tell you is that the Sheriff Bowman, in my conversation with him, suggested that there was nothing done inappropriately, that personal belongings weren't searched, that they weren't intimidated. The body camera, I believe, shows much different on that score. So I think actually the footage that we received from the Sheriff's Department, not to mention what we saw from the student video, but from the Sheriff's Department, actually makes our case quite strong.
This is from Jeff Cole of Fox 29. What do you hope come of the civil rights referral? Do you believe the women were targeted in some way?
We're looking for justice for them, and we're also looking to create an avenue for them, if they so choose, to file their own suits on this matter. We believe the complaint will help in that regard, particularly as it relates to the evidentiary findings that we have already introduced, but also give some room for them as they move forward as well. What was the last part of that question, Carlos?
The last part of it, do you believe that women were targeted in some way?
I wouldn't say targeted specifically until they got on that bus and saw that it was a Division I lacrosse team, 70% of whom were African American, and some of the language they used relative to searching for drugs and drug paraphernalia suggested that there was some implicit bias in their inquiry.
This is from Randall Chase of the Associated Press. What do you think was constitutionally dubious about the stop and search? Have university officials and counsel explored the case law on law enforcement searches of commercial buses, including the U.S. Supreme Court ruling States versus Drayton and Florida versus Coastal.
So I won't comment on the contents of the complaint. I'll let you read that when we file it. As I said in my statement, the stop and the search, we believe are problematic on many fronts. And we believe that the footage itself and the evidence we found out with respect to our discussions with all involved suggests that our position is a sound one.
This is from Alicia Reed of CBS Philly. Now that the time has expired, what actions will the university take to get copies of the additional body cam footage?
We will continue to pursue that action and go through the normal protocols. We are, I would say, laser focused on getting the footage from all the officers involved. So we will continue that pursuit until that footage is provided.
This is from Lewis Levine, Coastal News Service. Will you welcome Sheriff Bauman to meet the young ladies?
Not without the permission of the young ladies themselves. So Sheriff Bowman, as I talked to him, did suggest that if they were willing, he would be willing to meet with them. Now that was several days ago. I'm not sure what he feels about that now, but I would not do that without their permission. And we, the women's lacrosse team, and I have not talked about that possibility as yet.
Mark from Delaware Online. When do you plan to file specifically?
Next week sometime.
That is the last question.
Okay, thank you all for coming today on such short notice. I can tell you that the statement will be provided for you after the Zoom is over. Have a good day.